Okay, so we would start the session. So, hi, I welcome you all to this Tinkering Rootcamp session, which is organized by Tinkerers Lab and by ITC. My name is Nirmal Shah, and I'm a convener at TL. So, I hope that you should be having fun in the PG weekend and learning lots of new exciting stuff. So, in today's session, we are going to explore some basics of some different microcontrollers such as Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and ESP32. We are also going to explore some machine learning on a microcontroller. So, if you had done the machine learning previously, then you must be thinking that what's new in that? Just plug it in an R file and it's done. But wait, there is a twist at the end, and the secret would be revealed at that point only. So I'm sure that you would have a thrilling learning experience in this session. Okay, so let me open the slide. So let's start with the session. So if you have any doubts during the entire session, you can just type it in the chat box. My other colleagues would definitely help you out. So starting with the basics of Arduino. So going through the definition of what Arduino is and what all technical things are there, let me first tell you that what an Arduino does and how much power can a small microcontroller can have. So basically, an Arduino is the brain of your project, which has the capabilities to control the other electronic devices, and it communicates with the sensors and the electronic devices using these pins, which you can see, the pin holder. So Arduino consists not only of this hardware, which you are seeing here, but it is also needed to be code, and it has a special software which is used known as an Arduino IDE. So IDE stands for an integrated development environment. So you don't need to worry about it right now. We are going to use the simulators known as the Tinkercad. I hope that you must have received the mail regarding the same. And the part related to coding is very much simple. If you have done C++ previously, it is exactly like very much similar to that. So you don't need to worry about coding. Like you can learn it in a day or two. And let us see about now the more of the technical side of the Arduino. So basically you can see here that it has a 14 digital input output pins. So 0, 1, 2, 3 till 13. We have a digital input output pins, and out of which the 6 can be used as a PWM pins. So PWM pins, as you can see here, are represented by a tilde mark before the number. So 3, 5, 6, 9, 10, and 11. These are the PWM pins. So basically, what are PWM pins? So PWM pins are the analog input pins. So they are basically used to generate an analog output or input. So how is it able to generate analog input or output through digital means? So basically in this, what happens is that it rapidly switches on and off. It goes high and low so rapidly that on an average, it can generally decide at what voltage it is giving. So for example, if it is on for 50% of the time and off for 50% of the time. So on an average of this cycle, it is able to generate a voltage of about V by 2. And generally, the V is about 5 volts. So by using this, we would be able to give an output of about 2.5 volts. And similarly, if we are keeping it on for 75% of the time and off for 25% of the time, then basically it would give an average output of around 3 by 4 of volt. That is 3 into 5 by 4. And similarly, if we keep it on for 25% of the time, and if it is kept for 75% of the time, then basically what happens is that it gives on an average about V by 4 volts. So to write it in Arduino, we use the syntax analog write, and inside this bracket we give a number from 0 to 255. So basically this 0 from 0 to 255, it is a linear map between 0 to 5 volts. So for example, if you are writing analog write 255, it means that you are keeping it always on and hence giving 5 volt supply. And if you are writing analog write 127, then it would give us, it would remain on for 50% of the time, like half of the time period, and it would be off for half of the time period. So basically, it would give you about V by 2, that is equal to 5 by 2, and that is equal to 2.5 volts. So hence, Arduino is able to generate the analog input and output pins, analog and output functions using this method. So like the main part of the Arduino is that it is able to be integrated with the sensors. So let's talk about the different type of basic sensors that we have. So the first we would be learning about the servo motors. So the servo motors are a great device which is used to turn to a very precise position. And basically, the normal servo motors that you find out in market are generally which are able to rotate from 0 to 180 degrees. So basically, as you can see here, this is the servo motor, and there are 3 wires which have been removed from it. So this brown wire is generally the ground pin. So it is connected to the ground pin of the Arduino. The next is the red one, which is connected to the power, which is for the power. So it is connected to the 5 volt port of the Arduino. And the third one, which is our main one, is that is the signal one. So what happens is that it is used to give the command, like control the servo motors till how much it has to be rotated. So for example, like basically it fluctuates between, it uses a PWM function only. So it has a pulse. So if we give a pulse width of around 1 millisecond, then it would come to 0 degree position. And if we are giving a pulse width of 2 milliseconds, then it would rotate to 180 degrees. So, you know, it has a linear map between 1 milliseconds and 2 milliseconds of a duty cycle and 0 to 180 degrees. So if we give a pulse width of 1.5 milliseconds, which is in between 1 millisecond and 2 milliseconds, then it would rotate about 90 degrees. So let me show you how it is integrated with an Arduino using Tinkercad. Okay. So basically, this is an Arduino and this is a breadboard. So let me first tell you how the pins are connected in a breadboard. So as you can see, this FGHIJ of 1, the rail, is attached together. So if I connect anything is in 1J, it would get automatically connected to 1F. And the 1 and the 2 rails, the vertical rails, as you can see here, are independent of each other. So connecting anything by 1J would not affect anything at the port 2J. And similarly, we have this rail, the horizontal rail, as you can see, this is connected together. And similarly, this positive plus sign, as you can see, it is connected together. So what I have done is that I have taken a servo motor and I have attached its control pin, the signal pin, sorry, is attached to the 9th pin of the Arduino, as you can see here. The next one, which is the ground pin, as you can see here, is attached to the ground rail. And in fact, it is attached to this point, and this rail is attached to the ground of the Arduino, as you can see here. And similarly, this is the power pin, which is attached to the plus 5 volts. So it is attached to this horizontal rail, which is in fact attached to this horizontal rail. And then we have attached this rail to the plus 5 volts of the Arduino. So let us now go to the code. So basically, as you know that in C++, we are able to use we can create the libraries and header files. So similarly, in this Arduino, there are already predefined the header files which are available. So we just need to use it according to the sensor. So basically, the servo has its own header file. So we need to include that thing. And the header file's name is servo.h. Then we use create a variable which is of int data type, and name it as position as first and set it, initialize it to 0. Then we create an object of the servo and label it to be servo.9. So basically in Arduino, there are always two predefined functions. One is a void setup and one is a void loop. So basically in void setup, you basically tell the Arduino which pins are input and output pins. So, and also anything which you want to just write for a one-time purposes. And in void loop, anything that you write would be executed infinitely. Basically, it is like an infinite loop. So here in the void setup, I have written servo underscore 9, which was my object, and it has a attribute attached, not attached. And inside this, we need to attach to which signal pin it is attached to. So basically, as we know that we have attached it to the 9 pin of the Arduino. So I have written here 9. Then, so our entire circuit has been defined. So now we move on to the void loop. So here, our aim of this experiment is to rotate the servo from 0 to 180 degrees and back from 180 degrees to 0. And we are going to do it to and fro. So basically, I am using a for loop for position. So it would go from 0 to up till 180 degrees, and it has going to be incremented by 1. And then, hello? Okay. So we are again, there is an attribute of the object, which is dot right function. And inside that is specified in what position the servo has to move. So here, as you can see that, and then I'm giving, after moving to each position, I'm giving a delay of 15 milliseconds so that you are able to see the servo to rotate to that position. Okay. So basically, as you can see that by using this for loop, I'm able to rotate the servo from 0 to 180 degrees. And similarly, I have used a for loop to decrement the position from 180 degrees to 0 degrees. And I have written the exact same command, servo9.write force and delay. So let us run the code. So as you can see that it has been started to rotate from 0 to 180 degrees and from 180 degrees to 0. And it's going to go on infinitely until and unless the power is switched off. Okay, so this was regarding about a servo motor. So let us move to the next sensor that we have. Okay, so the next sensor that we have is an ultrasonic sensor. So basically, it is a sensor which is used to detect the distances using the principle of reflection of sound waves. So what happens is that would have heard about the echo. So the ultrasonic sonars and everything. So in that, what is the principle is that the device is usually emits an ultrasonic waves. It hits an obstacle and again come back and is reflected back and it reaches the sensor which records it. So basically, by knowing the time of flight till which the sound was in the air or in the medium, and knowing the speed of the sound, we can actually calculate the distance between this device, the ultrasonic device, and the obstacle. So basically, it has the capability to convert electrical energy into acoustic waves and vice versa. So basically, as you can see here, this is an ultrasonic sensor HCSR04. There are different types of sensors which are available in the market, but this is the most common one. So it has a 4 pins: VCC, trigger, echo, and ground. So the VCC, as you know that we need to supply a power. So it is attached to the plus 5 volts of an Arduino. The ground, as the name suggests, is connected to the ground of the Arduino. And these 2 pins are very interesting pins. So the first one is a trigger pin. So basically it is an output pin. So this is the pin which is able to generate the ultrasonic waves and it sends the burst uh, of the ultrasonic waves. So basically it is needed to be kept high for 10 microseconds. And this is the echo pin, which is an input pin. So basically all the reflected sound waves which has been received by this sensor, so it measures, it is kept high until which the ultrasonic waves are there in the sound, in the air or in the medium. And as soon as the sensor receives the reflected waves, it goes low. So let me make it clear more through an example. So basically, first we keep the trigger pin to be low, then it is activated or kept high for 10 microseconds. So as soon as it is kept high for 10 microseconds, then again made low, it sends a burst of acoustic ultrasonic waves, as you can see here. So it is being emitted from this sensor, and then as soon as it completes sending all the ultrasonic bursts, what happens is that the output of the echo pin goes high, and then it keeps on it is kept high until and unless the reflected waves has been again received back by this sensor. So at that time it goes low. So as you can see that we need to capture the time for which this echo pin was kept high, and by capturing that time we would be able to find out the distance between this sensor and the obstacle. So let me again show you how is this connected to an Arduino. Okay, so this is the sensor which we were talking about. So here, the trigger pin is attached to the 11th pin of the Arduino, and the echo pin is attached to the 10th pin. And the ground pin, as you can see here, is attached to the ground of the Arduino, and the VCC pin, which is a supply pin, which is attached to the 5 volts of the Arduino. So let me show you the code. So here I am again defining the trigger pin to be a variable which is having a value of 11, because the trigger pin is attached to the 11 port of the Arduino. And similarly, the echo pin, I am defining it as a variable to have a value of 10, because the echo pin is attached to the 10 port of the Arduino. So in this, in the setup, so this is a new command which you will be seeing, known as a pin mode. So basically what happens is that in Arduino, you need to specify that which pin is an output pin or which pin is an input pin. So basically, as we know that the trigger pin, which was there, is an output pin. So we write 11, comma output. And the 10 pin, which was the echo pin, is basically an input pin. So we write pin mode 10, comma input. And then we check if we want to capture the data which has been sent by the this ultrasonic sensor onto a screen, then we use this command serial.begin 9600 to display the values or the inputs which the Arduino are received onto a serial monitor. You can understand this by analogy that in C++, you would be running your code and seeing the output on a terminal window. So basically for an Arduino, it's the serial monitor. So we have defined the circuitry entirely. So basically in this, what we are going to do is that we are going to measure the sound, like the sound of the time. We are going to measure the time of flight, so that how much time the ultrasonic waves were kept in the medium and reflected back from the obstacle. And here, as we know that first, we need to make the trigger pin low, as you know. So we use the command digital write. So it makes the trigger pin to be low. Then we give a delay of 10 microseconds. And then we again give a digital write trigger pin high, and then give a delay of 10 microseconds. So by doing that, we are ensuring that the trigger pin remains high for 10 microseconds, and again we are making it low. So as you know that we are following exactly the same steps which are present here. So in this, as you can see that we are keeping it high for 10 microseconds. So the ultrasonic sensor automatically bursts the ultrasonic waves, and automatically it makes the output of the echo pin to be high. So now we need to capture for how much time the output of the echo pin was high. So basically what I have done is that there's a command known as a pulse in. So basically what it does is that it captures the time for how much the particular pin was high or low. So here we need to check for how much time the echo pin was high or low. And basically pulse in gives us the time duration in microseconds. So I print that thing, the time onto our serial monitor and just give a delay of about 10 milliseconds. So let me run the code. And here is the serial monitor. So as you can see, it's giving me a time of about 4000 microseconds. So let me show you the distance here. So basically our obstacle is kept of about 70 centimeters. So if I increase the distance, as you can see, the time has been increased automatically, as you can see here through the serial monitor. And if I decrease the distance from the obstacle, then as you can see, the time duration has decreased. So using this, you can actually find out the distance between the ultrasonic sensor and the obstacle which is kept in front of it. So basically, this was about knowing the different types of sensors. But the Arduino, you have to use your own imaginations and creativity to define the project that where you can use this sensor. Because when all the sensors come together, it only makes your project meaningful. So learning just about the sensor is not important, but integrating each and every sensor with your Arduino is a skill that you have to master. And I'm sure that it is very much wonderful about when all the sensors come together and work with each other. So let us go through a practical example where we would be integrating this ultrasonic sensor and the servo motor that we use. So basically, we are going to conceptualize a radar bot. So as you would have seen at the airports or the Marshall Field, so basically you would have seen a radar there. So basically, what does a radar do is that it rotates continuously on the top of the tower, and if any fighter jet, the enemy's fighter jet comes closer to the airport. So basically, there is a threshold limit up till which the enemy's fighter plane is allowed, below which an alarm is triggered and like a warning is given to the enemy plane. So basically, a similar thing would be used. So we would be using a servo motor on which the ultrasonic sensor would be attached to it. So basically, when the servo would rotate, the ultrasonic sensor would also rotate with it. And then for alarming the user, we are going to use a buzzer. So if the distance, that is the obstacle's distance, falls below a certain threshold, which has been measured by this ultrasonic sensor, then the buzzer would ring. So let me show you the code and the circuitry regarding that. So basically, as you can see here, that I'm just showing it for a representation purposes. This ultrasonic sensor will not move when the servo would rotate, but you need to imagine that this ultrasonic sensor is somehow mounted on this servo, and as the servo rotates, the ultrasonic sensor also rotates with it. So basically, in this, the trigger pin and the echo pin is attached to the 13th pin and the 12th pin, and this is the buzzer. So one end is attached to the ground, and the another end, which is used to give is the control command to it, is attached to the 8th pin. And the servo motor, in this the signal pin which is there is attached to the 7th pin, as you can see. So let us know the code about it. So this is how the circuitry looks like. So basically, as you know that we are using a servo motor, hence we need to include the servo header side and define an object of it. So I have defined it to be the S, the name of the object. Then I have initialized everything, like I have given a pause variable for knowing the position of the servo motor. Then the trigger pin, as you know, that is attached to the 13th pin, and the echo pin, which is attached to the 12th pin. And I have declared a variable D, which is of double data type, which would tell me the distance of the obstacle from the ultrasonic sensor. So as you are able to create the function in C++, similarly, you are able to create your own custom functions. So here I have created a function find distance, which would have a return type of double. So in this, we would be measuring the distance from the obstacle. So this is the same code which I have picked from the ultrasonic sensor. So you keep the trigger pin high for 10 microseconds and make it low. And then you calculate the time for which the echo pin was high. So after calculating the time, I am saving it in a distance variable, and this is the factor conversion. So basically, the pulse pin measures the duration in microseconds. Hence, we need to multiply it by 10 to the power minus 6 to bring it in seconds. But we need to measure the distance in centimeters. So basically, we multiply it by 10 to the power 2. And we also need to divide by 2 because we are traversing twice the distance from the obstacle. And here I'm considering the speed to be equal to 330 meters per second. So hence, after multiplying 330 into 10 to the power minus 6 into 10 to the power 2 by 2, we get a factor of about 0.0165. So I'm multiplying that distance and returning that distance. So let us go to our void setup. So here we are going to set up or define our circuit. So in this, as you know that the servo pin is attached, the signal pin is attached to the seventh port of the Arduino. So we are going to write this command, and then we are going to use the serial monitor to display the distance from our obstacle. So here, as you know that the trigger pin is an output pin. So we tell the Arduino that it is an output pin using this pin mode command, and the echo pin is an input pin. So we are going to define tell the Arduino using the pin mode command. So let us now go to the code. So this is the same code to rotate the servo from 0 to 180 degrees. So I am rotating the servo from 0 to 180 degrees in a step increment of 1 and giving a delay of 15 milliseconds. Then I am calling this function find distance, which would calculate the distance from the obstacle and would return the value to this d variable. And we are going to print that value on our serial monitor. So if the distance, like here I'm using an if else command. So if the distance is less than 100, we need like I have kept the threshold distance to be 100 centimeter. So if it's less than that, then the buzzer should ring. So here is the code for the buzzer. So this is the tone. We have a 3 inputs that it can take. The 8 is the pin at which it is attached to. So as you can see that in the buzzer, the 8th pin, it is attached to the 8th port of the Arduino. And then we need to specify at what frequency it would ring. So we are keeping the frequency to be 2000 Hertz until at what intervals it should ring. So it should be ringing for about 15 milliseconds. So again, I am using a decrement for loop. So like it would go from 180 degrees to 0 degrees. The servo would rotate from 180 degrees to 0 degrees, and then again find out the distance using this function and then printing it. And again, I am giving a condition that if the distance falls below the threshold, the buzzer should ring. So let me simulate the code. So I'm telling you that the ultrasonic sensor would not rotate, but you need to imagine that with each orientation of the servo motor, the ultrasonic sensor would also rotate. Like it is attached to the servo motor, but since like it is a limitation of the simulator, it would remain stable, but the servo would rotate. So just imagine that this is sitting on the top of the servo motor. Okay. So let me run the code. So basically, as you can see, it's giving me a distance of about 130 or 140 centimeters, 139. So as you can see, the servo is also rotating with it, and then it is checking the distance. So if you can see that if I keep on decreasing the distance, so as you can see, the distance also decreases. So now let me bring it below 100 and see if the buzzer rings or not. So as you can see, the buzzer starts to ring, as you can see. So now if I bring the distance back again above the threshold, which is our safety limit, so as you can see, the buzzer stops to ring. So this is how you can integrate different sensors, and using your own imagination, you can define a problem statements and solve them. So this was it regarding Arduino and the basics of the Arduino. Now my colleague Aniket would take forward from here.
So if you have any questions regarding the earlier earlier Arduino microcontroller, you or any sensor, you can ask them in the chat. The other colleagues will answer it. I will now take you forward with ESP32. So programming with ESP32. So first I'll get you to know what is ESP32. So this looks like this basic model you can see here. This is just a microcontroller as a Arduino. This has pins, but what is the Arduino also have pins, but what is different in Arduino? The and why are we using ESP32 or Node MCU ESP32? So this comes with a integrated Wi-Fi module. So you can connect a Wi-Fi with it. Uh, you can create a Wi-Fi from it. You can host a server. Then you can do IoT things from it. But with Arduino, you need to with Arduino for that you need to separately add a Wi-Fi module. Just like you add a ultrasonic sensor, you add a Wi-Fi module to it, and so it then you have to implement its libraries and all, and then you have to work on it. But the SP32 is separately built for only this purpose to handle this type of issue. Also in this, all the pins are analog pins. You can choose any pin. It will work both digital and analog, like digital and analog. So now I'll be getting started on how you can program with ESP32. So I'll first let you know how to add its libraries in Arduino IDE so that you don't get confused in that when you try it on your own. So let me get started with, yeah. So this is a basic code. I'll tell you where you can find it or how you can write it. First, let's get started with libraries. So this is a URL. Just a second. Yeah, this is a URL which you need to copy from here, and you need to then go to your Arduino and go to this file preferences and paste it here. So I have already pasted it. Then you need to go to tool
Aniket,
and code.
you have just shared your Chrome browser. Can you share your whole screen?
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, I'll share my whole screen. Sorry. uh, okay, yeah, so is it visible now? uh,
Yes, go
uh,
ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, as I was telling that you need to copy this code and then you need to go to this file and preferences in Arduino IDE, and you need to paste it here. I've already pasted it. So now I'll click OK. So why we have to paste this code? This is basically for downloading an board. Arduino IDE by default comes with Arduino boards, but if you need to download ESP boards, then now you need to go to board manager, and here you need to type ESP. Then ESP32 will come. You need to install this one by ESP Receive Systems. You need to install this, and then you can see in this tools that you have a ESP32 boards available here. You need to select ESP32 dev module, change the port according to what port you are using, and then you are good with using ESP32. Now you can glow some LEDs with it, just like you have you can just give a one in output to 21 pin by via writing the code, and you can glow the LED. That is pretty basic, and you can do it on your own. But what I am going to go ahead for this session is the Blink app, which I already have announced in the email that please download it, and if you haven't done so, do it right now so that we can have a quick interactive demo hands-on from your side just after my part. So I'll tell you what the Blink app is. So the Blink app is, yeah, this picture explains it clearly. So earlier what we are doing, we are just giving a code in our ESP, and we are uploading it, or you saw in Tinkercad we are running it to get some output from this board, any of the boards, RPi, Arduino, ESP, any of the boards. But now what we can do is we can give our commands from our mobile app, which will via Blink app, which will be taken to Blink server, which is connected to our any of the boards. So other boards I'll not be taking. I'll be taking ESP32 board, which will be connected to our ESP32 boards via some Blink libraries, and then you can just give commands from your mobile without re-uploading the codes again and again, and you will be good to use this like a home automation or IoT thing. So you can see the temperature of, or you can see the moisture around a plant if you add any sensor around it and connect it with ESP, or if you add some LED or fan through the ESP, then you can control it via your mobile. And I'll tell you, the best part is you don't have to worry about the distance, or you don't have to connect to the same Wi-Fi your ESP32 is being connected. So now I'll go through on how to just glow a LED via this. So yeah, for that, for that, just a second. You can see here in my browser, I have just a Blink example browser. So Blink does come with a huge lot of library and huge community. So you can see that here I have selected board ESP32, ESP32 Wi-Fi Blink. So you are just blinking a LED. So you can see the code has already been given here, which is a pretty simple code. You can and see all the lines are commented. Just we have about 10 lines of code, so I'll explain them what they do. For first, we need to go to this manage libraries, and in there just hold on a second. In there we need to search Blink ESP, and the first library you see by Volodymyr Szymanski, you need to download that, install that, and then you can use Blink libraries in this. So we are just including some Wi-Fi client as this is just a library we are including to get it connected to Wi-Fi. So now you have to connect it with Blink. So we are using a Blink library. We are defining Blink print as a serial. So why are we defining this? So that Blink print, which is a thing used in the library, gets a name as serial, and then when you do serial.print, as Nirmal already said, the serial.print prints and serial monitor. So then in the library they are using Blink print. So for printing them to serial monitor, we have to define Blink print as serial. So now okay, now I'll share my Blink app and go through it on how you can uh, yeah, I'll share my Blink screen and Blink app, and I'll go through on how to take this token and all. So yeah, till then I'll go through the next part of the code. We have to define some ID and password. If your password is empty in this, then if you don't have any password related to Wi-Fi, then you can keep it empty. Otherwise, you need to give ID and password. Now, what you need to do is you need to in setup you need to first begin the serial monitor as always, and then you need to Blink begin. So Blink begin is begin by a auth token, a SSID, and a password. So the SSID and the password is the Wi-Fi and password you want your ESP32 to be connected, and your auth token is the token get which you get from your Blink app. So I'll show that just now. Okay, yeah. So this is a Blink app. I've already created a project in here. So I'll explain you on how to create a new project. So you can just go here, click a new project. You can choose your board, which board you want. I've chosen ESP32 day board. Wi-Fi is my method. Project name try. I'll keep it as try, let's say, and then I need to create it. Auth token was sent to a mail, so you can see that auth token will be sent to a mail. Now I'll go on with my previous project only. So I'll delete this widget for now. Yeah. So you can see this is our project as it will initially look like. So you can see this will be our project as it will initially look like. Now I'll tell you on how you can add some buttons or something which gives command to your ESP. So first of all, let's look on a button, what a button do and how you can use it. So auth token is clear. You get this auth token here, and then in void loop you just need to write blink.run, and then whatever will be done to your ESP will be done via Blink app, and you don't need to do it from anywhere hardware or anywhere from the code. Whatever functions you set in the Blink app will be given. So in this you can button, when you click on the button you can see uh, pin here. You can select a digital pin. You can also see an option of virtual pin. What that is I'll tell you in a bit. So this digital pin you can select. I'll tell you about the virtual pin in a bit. So I have connected my pin to 21. So I will just click on I will just select 21. I'll keep the mode as not push but switch. I want my button to be like a switch and not a push button. So I have just configured the button thing, and now I'll show you in camera how it works actually. So yeah. Yes, you okay. Uh, so if it is visible, I guess yeah it is. So you can see I have connected this ESP module. I'll zoom it to this. You can see I have connected this ESP module to a pin 21, which you may not be able to see clearly, and I have connected a LED to it. Uh, so just a second. Yeah. So now you can just focus on this LED, and you'll see on when I'll upload this code. So for uploading, you need to take care of certain things in a Blink app. So I'll show you on how to properly upload Blink code. You cannot just directly upload it. So while uploading, what you need to take care of first, port is selected correctly. So you need to do it one or two times to see whether which port your Blink ESP32 is connected to. And then when you click on upload, you need to press this boot button right here. You can see if you have a ESP board or if you buy one, you can see there that you need to there will be a boot button which you need to press completely till the uploading gets done. So currently it is compiling, so I have not pressed it right now. I'll press it in a bit. Just let it uh, yeah, so it is being compiled. Okay, so if you have any doubts in this till now on how my code is running, okay, I need uh, this serial port gets disconnected. Okay, maybe so. One thing, there is a problem that this is a very uh, loose pin, so you need to take care of it properly. This gets disconnected very easily. So yeah, I have pressed the boot button, connecting. Yeah, so you can see the data is going to upload, and it is in written and yeah leaving. So now you can see in your Blink serial monitor. I need to change it to 9620. Okay. Again. Yeah. Now you can see the LED. And okay. One thing I need to show you. So I'll again upload it, and I'll open the serial monitor. Yeah. I need to show you something will be printed on the serial monitor, and why that will be printed, I'll then explain you. So as you can see, something has been printed, but we don't have written anywhere serial.print. So that is being printed because we have implemented a Blink library with which uses Blink print and then print something. And since we have defined that Blink print to be serial, that is being printed here. If I just remove this line, I have not tried it anytime, but let's try it. And you can see if I just remove this line, then nothing will get printed again. Okay, so I'm pressing the boot button. Yeah, see. Uh, okay, so yeah, you can see nothing is gets printed here. For this demo, we don't need to get anything printed either. So we can just remove that line, or we can add that line to see this beautiful things, ping and all, which IP address we are connected to and all. Now I'll so just click on play, and you can see thinking bootcamp connected. Okay, so it has not showing that yellow sign. It means it is connected, and when you click on, you can see your LED has been glowed. When you click on off, you can see that. And nowhere my connection has been made directly with any wire with this mobile. So now I'll ask any one of you to just raise your hand to volunteer in this, so that we can have a hands-on with you, and you can give your OR token, and then you can just glow from your mobile at wherever you are, this LED, this particular LED right here. So if any one of you just raise your hand to volunteer, and I'll take your auto token. Uh, there, yeah, this upload. Okay, I am seeing this some questions in chat. So this upload is a one-time thing. Yeah, surely we don't need to upload it again and again, and you can just upload it once. And I've done it twice and thrice to show you that how this Blink print and all things work. Now, can someone? Okay, raise hand is not an option. Is it? Okay, so just someone type in the chat box if you want to volunteer. Uh, or has anyone, if anyone has downloaded this Blink app, just go through it and create a new project and give me the odd token you got, so that I can take you from the for the hands-on. If there is no one for now, I'll move on with my next. I've gotten a token. Yeah, so you can just share. Sahil Malik, can you come to audio? And you can share the token in the chat.
Yeah, I will just copy and paste.
Yeah, okay. Also, are you connected with your laptop or mobile? If you are, do share your mobile screen, if possible, so that everyone can see that uh, how.
No, I haven't connected my mobile screen yet with the laptop, so I don't think
Okay,
that will
so
be
you
possible.
can. Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. Okay. So just share your OR token, and I'll paste it here. If you change the OR token, yeah, you need to again upload it. How do we get? Can you? Okay, I'll go over that again. First, I'll just try this with his OR token. So if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I have correctly listed it, and I'll remove this thing, and now you see, just I have changed this odd token, so I need now I need to again upload this. So I'll again upload it, and where is my serial monitor? I'll open my serial monitor too. I'll upload it. So yeah, I'm uploading it, and you can see in the screen we have it. I have to press again a boot button. So this boot button basically lets it know that when whether you're uploading or not. So you can see that writing and it starts writing. So we can now safely remove, and then it will be printed. So you get this, then it will get printed. If I just uncomment that code, you can see right here. Okay, so now Sahil, can you please just click on that play button just like I did, and then click on, have you configured your buttons?
I don't think, but I have
Uh,
received a message like new device connected.
Okay, so cool. Our device has been connected. Now I'll show you on how to just configure a button again. So first I'll go through on how you take a auth token. So if you have created a project and it will be already mailed to you, but if you haven't got the mail, or if there is some error, you can just go to this settings, and then you see here auth token. So either you can email all or you can copy all. So just copy all will be copied to clipboard, and then email all will be sent to your email. So sending, and you can then see auth token was sent to your mail, whichever mail you have created your ID with. So that is that. And now I'll show you how to configure buttons. So you can just go here, use digital pins, give the digital pin to 21, as I have currently used 21st pin in my ESP32, but you can change
Hello,
it.
excuse me. Hello. How did you
Yes.
come to this screen? Can you just go?
Okay, so first I need to just click on add a button, then a button will come here, but I have, since I have already added, I'll remove this one, and then okay, I'll just remove this, and I'll add a button. I'll go here, so just I'll click on this button and I'll go here. So are you able to go like here, Sahil?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Which
So
pin do we have to select?
21st pin you need to select, but you can change it anytime without changing the or re-uploading the code. So if you just change any pins in your hardware, you can change it on your mobile too, and then you need to do it a switch type, because we don't want it to be a complete and we want it to be like a switch. So now your it has been configured. Just click on play. Mine it shows a red error because it is not been connected. For you, I think it will not show this thing, and I think you will be able to. Are you configured, and have you clicked on play?
Yes, I'm clicking. Just one second.
Yeah.
I have clicked.
Okay, so now just click on off or on. So you
Okay,
can
it
see
is
the
showing
LED
on.
has been glowed. Yeah, so you can see on my screen that LED has been glowed. And
Yeah, yeah.
if you just click on off, then you can again see that it will turn off. Okay, so yeah, this is that, and we are connected from nowhere, and you can see that this works even with any of the distance, because this is just connected from the Blink server, which is sending the instructions to this ESP module. So this is something basic of IoT you can get, and you can then go on with it, do some interesting tasks with it. So now I'll go on with another set of demo, another set of example, and then I'll take someone more with from the audience to help me do the demo. So you might have seen in my mobile. So I'll just show you again that there are some virtual pins. You must be bothering what those virtual pins. Sorry. Yeah, what those virtual pins were, and why haven't you used that pin? So these virtual pins are some pins which are just to send instruction from your Blink app to your ESP, and these are not connected to any real pins. So you can see here these are real pins. So the digital pin you saw there was connected to these real pins, and the Blink app lets them only work digitally and not analog, but they have the functionality to work analog, like analog too, but the Blink app does not allow that. They don't have this feature. You can, maybe you can add them in your app if you made some, and but for now the Blink app don't have that feature. So what you need to do is you need to use some virtual pins. Virtual pins basically can send any type of code. They can send a string, they can send a integer, float value, anything you want. So but those are not connected to any of the real pins. Those are just to send instruction between the Blink app and your mobile Blink app and your ESP32, and then you can get that instruction within your code, and then you can manipulate it within your code and upload it to do whatsoever you want to do. So now there are some functions you need to learn if you are using a virtual pin. There's blink write, blink read, there's some timer function. So I'll give the example for blink write for now, but I'll explain you blink write and blink read. So what is blink write? So whenever you write some value in your blink app, that you must get into something in the ESP code. So for that you need define a blink write function with the virtual pin number inside it. So I'll show you the code, and so that you can uh, so I'll open up the code. So these codes, the first code you can see here, this is just the same code. You just need to change your auth token ID and password. The next one, you need to next one code, you need to change a bit. I'll explain that to you. But yeah, you can see here I have defined a blink write function with v1 as the argument, and so v1 we need to then configure it to v1 pin. So what blink write does is it takes some value from the virtual pins, and then it do as so commanded by the code. And the blink read, what it do is it gives the some input, it gives some value to the virtual pin in the mobile app. So blink read is from ESP32 to blink app, and blink write is from blink app to ESP32. The timer is something you can tinker upon your own, you can look upon your own and play with it. uh, for now I'll go through this live demo. I'll explain you the code for this. Okay. So what I have done is I have nothing changed here. I have included an extra library. I'll explain that why, what is that. Uh, or token, I have used mine for now. I have defined the int led as 21. Since I am using some virtual pin, then I need to write that value in some led, in some pin, real pin. I have defined that 21st pin as int led equals to 21, and I have set its pin mode as output. Now in void loop, I again do only blink run, but I need to create an extra function blink write with a argument v1 if I use v1 as my virtual pin. So where I will take the LED values as an integer value. I'll show you in blink app that this value comes within range of 0 to 1023. So if I am analogically writing it, I can only write between 0 to 255. So I need to divide it by 4. So that's why I have just done a serial print here and then divided it by 4 to do analog write. But for doing analog write in Arduino, we don't need anything extra. But in this ESP32, we need a extra library analog write.h, which you can just go in manage libraries and search upon. Okay, you can search upon analog write ESP. And again, the first library by EROPix is the library you need to install, and then you will be good with it. So the code is pretty much this only. You just need to add the right button in this blink write function in this. And now I'll show you how to configure your blink app. So for configuring your blink app, you just need to go into blink app. I'll remove this gadget for now. I'll add another gadget known as slider. So I have added a slider down here, and let me increase its width. Okay. now you can see there is only virtual pin options, because this is given an analog input, so this cannot give to directly to any real pins, because the blink is only implemented on real pins for digital values. So now I need to change it to V1, as I have written V1 in my code, and I'll click OK, and this will ask me for some decimals or something. So how many decimal place? So I have configured it to 1. It means only integer value is allowed. And do we want send on release or not? I don't want send on release. I want continuous flow. So there's a 100 ms minimum in writing interval. So I'll select that only. And now when I go to this, what I'll do is I'll just upload my new code to Arduino, to ESP. Okay. So the new code I'll upload it. I'll show you in my camera also. Let's get to this. Okay. Please anyone configure this as it is, and ready for your part of the demo. I'll just click on this, so it will get written on the code. Okay, now it is all done. You will see in a bit here connected. Okay, yeah, it is connected. Tinkering Bootcamp connected. Now I can just play it, and you can see as I grow slowly, yeah, slowly as I, why it's not working? Yeah, as I glow slowly, the intensity of the LED grows, and you can see the value is been printed here as I have done serial.print. And as you decrease the value, the LED intensity decreases. So this is how you can write any analog input in your pins via the Blink app. You need to first send them via a Blink right virtual pin to this, where it takes a LED value. You, if you have done any decimal pointers, then you can just write it here param dot as float or as decimal. You can look at the exact syntax on the internet. So the very famous example sheet is here. You have a lots and lots of example, a very big community of Blink app, so you can look up there. And now you are just analogically writing it. So you can see in my screen on how you are just increasing the LED light. So yeah, you are decreasing, and the intensity is slowly growing. So this is something you can do it with Blink app. You can just, okay. Now I again want someone to volunteer, so that we can have another hands on this. So can someone just volunteer and give your or token to me? Okay. Whose Jan has given or token for, I'll take his odd token for now, and then I'll take one more odd token again after this. So okay. uh, okay, yeah, I have pasted it. I'll again upload that, and I'll open my serial monitor. Okay. And yeah, okay, there are lots of odd tokens. So as yeah, I need, sorry for the interruption. I maybe disconnected my. Okay, I'll upload it again. Uh, that, uh, uh, so Yeah, you can see I have uploaded okay, who was that person? Who was that? Who's Jan? I have taken your or token, I guess. So can you just no 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 no. Which one I have taken?
It was me, right?
Yeah, it was you. So can you just so can you just show your mobile screen so that everyone can see if it's possible? Just show your mobile
Should
screen and
I screen
uh,
share or
yeah, you can do a screen share. Yeah, all right, it's all right. Can you just tell whether your LED has whether your blink app has been connected or not?
let me check.
Yeah, and have you configured this blink app? Okay, yeah, it is. Yeah, so you can you okay, I'll open the serial monitor. Just wait. Yeah, serial monitor. Yeah. So can you give some can you increase the value?
I couldn't share because I mean you are sharing.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Just can you increase the value to somewhere between 100, 200 or something? Yeah, so you can see the value has been printing here. And again, this is a very good example of IoT. So for now, sorry for the rest. I can't your or token right now because we have some time constraint on the session and we have some more pretty interesting things in some microcontrollers to look upon. So sorry, I cannot take any more or tokens. But for now, I'll just stop this and I'll go on. Okay, yeah. Because you can now stop will disconnect this, so you can just stop uh, giving the inputs. You can just turn it to 0 so that my LED turns off. Okay. And now I'll tell you. Yeah, I have told you what a blink read do, but the more interesting things you can look upon, there are with just a joystick which you can implement, and then you can use that joystick as a live joystick. You can just attach to a blink app which and you can attach to a ESP, and you can attach a live joystick to it via some wires, and then you can just play on your mobile with a joystick which will lets you control a real joystick. So these all features you can implement. I have shown you the live demo. Now I'll go through one large example on home automation, which is an integration with home voice assistant. So till now we have just seen that we can use blink app to wherever, if I am in the office, if I am in a college class, I can just turn my lights off in my room. I can just turn let's say if I am coming if I am in a office and I want to turn my AC on before I come to home, I can just turn it by my mobile when I sit in the car, and then when I arrive, my AC is working, and I don't have to wait. Uh, so these all are some interesting. So I can plant a humidity sensor around my pot, and I can just keep watching my what is the humidity of my pot, and I can give water accordingly via water jet, which is also I can do automatically. So these are some good example you can work on. You can try writing that code on. Now I'll get you on how you can just implement your own Alexa kind of thing, how you can just send your own voice to get the things done. So you can see that I we just need to learn about IFTTT for this. So nothing, just a IFTTT. And what is this IFTTT? So this is nothing but a short form of if this then that. If we are giving this input, then output this. So this is just a if else condition kind of thing, which takes input from one server on the internet and gives output to another server on the internet. It is just a connect way. So you can connect your Google Assistant on your mobile, or your Siri on your mobile, to one side of this IFTTT, and then on this IFTTT you can connect it another side to a Blink server via webhooks. You can connect to a Blink server. So now you don't have to give your from your mobile, you don't have to give from your mobile app any instruction to the server. You can just give it directly via Google Assistant, which will give it to if this IFTTT, and which will give the instruction to the Blink server, and then the Blink server proceeds with Blink libraries and give it to your ESP32. So you can just try on implementing this voice assistant, very good interesting task to do. You can just say on your mobile, turn on the LED, and your light will be turned on. So this is something no, this is something interesting you should try your hands on. If you are stuck somewhere, we have a recording for this on the YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You can watch from there, but for now, due to some time constraint, I'll stop here and I'll call upon my next colleague, Vedant, which will let you go through some RPI basics and show you some interesting tricks. So thanks for joining in. I'll stop my screen saying now. Vedant, you can carry on. Thank you, everyone. And due to time constant, I cannot take upon all your tokens, but we can try it on later.
Thank you, Aniket. It was really nice and really interesting learning about ESP and all those wireless things. So, hello friends, I am Vedant Chandak, convener of Tinkerers Lab. I'll be taking you through a short intro of Raspberry Pi, what it is and how you can use it, how to get started with using it. So, Raspberry Pi is a single board computer. I have one with me right now. This is a Raspberry Pi. Just to give you a size comparison, this is my IITB ID card and you can literally cover it with your ID card. So this is that small, and being small, it does not compromise on many things. It has all the ports, your normal USB ports, Ethernet ports, HDMI ports and all. So I'll go through that later. So as I said, it is a full-fledged computer. So let's just boot it up on a monitor and then we'll talk about things after that. So till I boot it up, this is my screen. I'll just be connecting an HDMI port to this, HDMI cable to this from the monitor, uh, and a normal power cable, micro USB power cable. It has a port for that too. And I also want my mouse to be working on this, so I'll connect my wireless Bluetooth mouse. I'll plug this thing in and just turn on the display and the Raspberry Pi. So as you can see, probably this is a screen. Till it turns on, just let me tell you something about the screen. The screen has been made from a salvaged computer. So next time your laptop broke, just don't throw it away. You can always use your screen to make another monitor. Maybe when you are in TL next time, we can have a session on that too. So this is just booting up like a normal operating system. I'll tell you how to install this operating system and all, but let's go ahead with it. So this has opened like a normal operating system. I think you are not able to see what I am showing on the screen clearly. So I'll use one thing called VNC viewer, from which I can just view the screen on my laptop and basically operate my Raspberry Pi computer wirelessly. So I'll just do that. I'll share my screen. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you are able to see the Raspberry Pi computer. Can someone confirm?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, so this is basically the Raspberry Pi OS. We'll go through this a little later. Uh, I'll tell you a little bit about what this Raspberry Pi is. So, Raspberry Pi is a low-cost credit card size computer that I have shown you already, and it has all the different ports as you can see in the image. This is the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus module that I have with me, and in the image it is that too. So we'll go through what other ports are in the on the Raspberry Pi. Going into the specification, it has 1 GB RAM. It has a processor of its own. It has inbuilt Bluetooth and wireless connectivity. It also has 14 GPI open, just as they had in Arduino and ESP. But this is more powerful, more bigger version of those things, which can also act as a personal computer. But if you want to use it in a project, so there are GPI opens that you can take help of. There is a full size HDMI port, 4 USB port, a separate camera and display ports. If you are not, if you have to connect a camera, then they have a special Raspberry Pi camera, a special Raspberry Pi display, and different specific ports for those two, except the HDMI. It also has a stereo output where you can plug in your headphones or speakers, and a micro SD port. As the Raspberry Pi does not have a memory of its own, you have to plug in a small memory card behind it, and it would be basically the HDD of the Raspberry Pi. And you have to give it power using any charger. I use my phone charger for that, and it also supports Ethernet. So what can it do? It can act as a general purpose computer, just as I've shown you, and I'll get you through this as we go along. You can use it as a media center. Suppose you want to make your TV at your home smart TV. If it is not, then you can take help of Raspberry Pi there. Raspberry Pi was basically built to make children learn programming, and it was made by some people in United Kingdom to who are tinkerers just like us. And you can then, as I said, use Raspberry Pi to make electronic projects, take photos, use in robotics, network storage because it has Wi-Fi inbuilt. You can make different projects like weather station. You can make a PlayStation out of it as well, and I'll tell you about those things. And moreover, anything that you can think of, you can make with your Raspberry Pi. If it comes to your mind and it does not exist, use Raspberry Pi and make it. So what you will need to start, you will need a Raspberry Pi uh, chip or a computer that I've shown you just back. You'll need a keyboard and a mouse. I just have a mouse, so it works too without only with only a mouse. You'll need a HDMI cable, a power cable to give power to Raspberry Pi, and probably a display screen. I have in my case used a monitor, or you can also use your TV instead. So this is the basic layout of the Raspberry Pi module. It has GPIO pins at the top, general purpose input output pins. It has Ethernet port, 4 USB ports, an audio jack. The single strip that you see right to left to the audio jack is a camera port where you can plug in the Raspberry Pi camera and use it directly from there. There are two HDMI ports. This is model Raspberry Pi Model 4. I have a Raspberry Pi Model 3 with me. It has only one HDMI port, but in this module you can make a multi-monitor setup, and it's pretty great. And all this comes in a small size package. My Raspberry Pi 3 is just cost 2,500 rupees, and Raspberry Pi 4 costs around 4,000 rupees. So it is really cheap when we compare it to the normal traditional computer that we use at our home. And you'll see that it can do all those things that a normal computer can do in a while. It has a micro USB power port to give it some power, and you can insert your micro SD card beneath from the behind of the Raspberry Pi. So I'll give you a tour of Raspbian. Raspbian is the operating system just like Windows that runs on Raspberry Pi. So this is Raspbian. To install the Raspbian, you'll have to go to just a second. You'll have to go to raspberrypi.org. This is the model that I'm using. Just go to raspberrypi.org, go to softwares, Raspberry Pi OS. This is Raspberry Pi OS, was initially called Raspbian. Now it is called Raspberry Pi OS just. So I want Raspberry Pi OS with desktop, and you can select any of the versions from here. You can download it. Just put it on a SD card. and put that SD card into the Raspberry Pi and you're good to go. Just plug it into the display and it will boot up like this. So this is the Raspberry Pi module. It is just like your normal Windows, but it just runs on Linux operating system. There are bunch of programming languages built into the Raspberry Pi, and there's also Arduino IDE. So if you do not have a laptop or a computer of your own and you want to do the thing that were taught to you before with Arduinos and ESPs, you can do it using your Raspberry Pi computer as well. There are a bunch of different things. You can just use it as a normal computer. It has an office setup. You can also use internet on it. I have connected to Wi-Fi as well. uh, there you can play videos, you can play games, and you can almost do everything that you can do on your normal laptop. You can also add and remove software. You just go into the add and remove software, and there are a bunch of them that you can pick from. So this is just like a normal computer if you want to do it like that. But here's a catch: when you are using it as a brain of your bigger system, where it first of all, let me tell you where it is used. If you have a bigger project including many of the Arduinos, 2 or 3 Arduinos controlling different modules, and you want a master computer to guide all those 3 4 Arduinos, there comes an Raspberry Pi, and in that case you will probably not connect it to the display, but you will still want to operate it. In those cases, this command line interface comes in. This is a command line interface of the Raspberry Pi. I have I can wirelessly reach out to my Raspberry Pi without, so it just have to be powered on, not needing a display, just giving it a power through micro USB. And I'll just need the IP address of my Raspberry Pi. So what I'll have to type is host name dash I, and it has given me the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. This is the IP address. I'll just copy it and I'll close this. uh, I'll also close this window. This is my normal Windows computer. So I'll, in the Windows computer, I'll go into the command prompt of the Windows computer, and I can directly uh, wirelessly control my Raspberry Pi from here. So what I'll have to do is write SSH pi at and paste my IP address that I've gotten from the previous step and hit enter. It will ask me, do I want to continue? I'll press yes. It will ask me for password. So it would be the one that you set once you boot for the first time. And as you can see from my Windows computer, I have booted into the Raspberry Pi wirelessly. I'm not connected any cable to the Raspberry Pi, so this is all wireless. So even if I turn off the display of the Raspberry Pi right now, I'll still be able to use it as long as it has power. So just to show you, I'll ping Google www.google.com from here, and if it shows us things, so yes, it is receiving data from the Google. So yes, I'm controlling Raspberry Pi wirelessly using SSH. Using SSH, I can only use through the command line. So command lines have different functions to create objects, to create, go back, to go inside some file manager, etc. So if you have a minimal task of input from the user end, you can use the command line interface. If not, if you want to operate the whole Raspberry Pi wirelessly with the screen, with the display, there's something called VNC viewer which you can use. So to download it, just Google VNC viewer download. The first link is officialvnc.com. Download the VNC player for your own computer, and it would just turn up like this. I've downloaded it, I've installed it. Once you open it, enter VNC server address or search. I'll just put my IP address in the search box. I'll hit enter. It will tell me the username is Pi by default, so you do not have to change it. But the password would be what you have set for your Raspberry Pi. And once I put in that password and hit enter, it would take me wirelessly to the Raspberry Pi computer that is on the display right where I showed you. And you can use your laptop mouse and laptop keyboard to operate it. So this is pretty much the basics of Raspberry Pi that you needed to know to get started with the Raspberry Pi. So you can use it as a personal computer, or you can use it as a master for in your projects to create to control other Arduinos and ESPs that have further certain modules, certain sensor attached to them. So this is we are really short on time, so I'll just stop here. But this was the overview that would help you get started with these things with the Raspberry Pi, and you can move around and tinker with these things. So thank you very much. Now Bhuvan will be taking the session forward. He has something interesting for you called TinyML. So you must know ML, but he'll run it with a twist. So it was nice presenting for you. And Bhuvan, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Vedant. Hello, everyone. I'm Bhuvan Agarwal, and I will be telling you about the TinyML thing. So I will share my screen 1 second. Can anyone acknowledge if the screen is visible?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, thank you. So basically, TinyML is the intersection of IoT and ML. So nowadays, we all have a perception that for deploying ML models, we need heavy computation machinery or maybe highly expensive services such as IBM Cloud or Microsoft Azure, right? So here comes the TinyML to your rescue. With TinyML, you can deploy your machine learning and deep learning modules like very easily on a low computation microcontroller such as Arduino, ESP, or Adafruit, Raspberry Pi, and so on. So, and that too without any much hassle. Like you don't have to do something custom to do that. You can simply code it in the Arduino and ESP like Nirmal and Aniket taught you before. So you just have to add a few libraries and that's it. And like what does exactly tinyml do? So first we build and train our model using the TensorFlow library, and then you might be knowing that we can save our trained model in the .h5 format, right? The trained model with the weights. So the .h5 format contains the structure of our ML model and the weights. So after that, we convert this saved model into the microcontroller compatible format using the TF Lite, that is TensorFlow Lite. So that is a sub library of the TensorFlow only, and they provide this library so that the users can convert the PCML models to the microcontroller ones. And also after that, we just have to convert that TF Lite file the uh, into the C arrays, because the TF Lite format is not currently supported by the Arduino and ESPs. So for that, we have to convert that into the like the CC format, the C++ format. So that also I will tell you how through the code. And first I will show you a demo of this. So this is a video. After I will explain you the code in the collab, then we will also show you the real demo. So as you can see on the screen here, this is an ESP32, and you might be knowing about the MNIST data, right? So that is the collection of numbers and is a very basic data set which is used for number recognition. So as you can see on here, so here the second input data which comes to our model is the 2, the image of the handwritten 2. So on the left side, you can see the prediction. So it has printed 2, and also here you can see on this side that alongside 2, the probabilities are given. So for 0, for 3 to 9, all these probabilities are 0, but for 2, the probability is 0.99976, and for 1 it is 0.00022. So it has given the result 2 here. So as you can see, the whole model, the MNIST detection model, works on the ESP32, and that too as at a very high FPS, as you can see here. So uh, the doubt that you have in mind that the speed would be very slow while the computation, that also you don't have to worry about, because the FPS would also be very great. Yeah, so now I will move on to the code for how to use the TensorFlow Lite. Yeah, so this is a Colab environment. For those who don't know what is Colab, so Colab provides us a sort of cloud computing, and we can train our models on Colab, and we can also visualize the data. And like Colab can be used as a remote Linux machine only, but majorly it is used for ML purposes, majorly. So first you can see here that we import our libraries, TensorFlow, NumPy, Matplotlib, etc. And then we print the versions of these libraries. After that, I've just defined some variables which we will use, like the validation set ratio and the test ratio. And after that, we create our sample data. Okay, so here I'm going to show you a demo on the sign prediction model. So what we will do is we will give a input of a random number, and we will design the model to predict the sign of that input number. So it is a pretty basic operation if you think in a daily life, but we can automate it using ML, and it is just for demonstration purposes. You can also use very complex models like deep learning models or CNNs, RCNNs, and so on. So we create the input data. So what I have done here is I have taken a sine curve, and then I have added the noise to that, because then what the noise will do is it will increase our input data. Okay, so I will stop here and see if you have any questions. You can unmute yourself or ask in the chat also. Okay, seeing that there are no questions. Actually, I'm not able to see the chat. Maybe if someone can tell if there are questions in the chat.
Bhuvan, can you specify the model used in that previous video? One guy has asked this question.
Yeah, so in the MNIST one, that is a basic CNN model, like a couple of convolution layers and a couple of activation layers. So that was a pretty basic model. I will be sharing all the resources after the session with you. Okay, thank you. So we will move on from here. And here you can see that we have created the input data set. And after that, we will split the data set into the training, test, and validation. And that is depicted by the different color codings. So we define a very simple model here with two fully connected layers and one output layer, which will give us our prediction. So the activation used here is ReLU, and it is a very basic ML model to start with. And after that, we just compile the model, as you can see here, using the RMS prop optimizer and the MAE loss. Then we train our model using the model.fit, and I have currently trained the model for 500 epochs. And after that, we can use the history visualization to see the training loss and validation loss over the epochs. So as you can see here, over the time, as we reach the 400 to 500 epochs, the loss drops to less than 0.1, and that is a very good result for us. And here you can see the predictions for that. So the blue dots which you see are the actual input data, and the red ones are the prediction. So it is very close to perfect, as you can see, and we can improve the results by switching some parameters, like introducing more data, or maybe using a better loss function, or a better optimizer, and so on. Okay, so epoch is like one flow of training. So I had created the data set, right? The input data set. So in one epoch, the model will be trained on that data once, and the weights would be stored. And in the second epoch, the same weights would be used for the prediction, and then the loss would be computed. And after that, the weights would be optimized, so to say. So these are the technical terms of the ML. So if you want, I will also share some basic videos on ML. Yeah, it can be a sort of iteration. So there would be two iterations. One iteration would be on each data. Like suppose there are 1,000 input points. So one iteration would be on 1, 2, 3, 4 such data points, and one iteration would go on 1,000. Then those 1,000 would be repeated and so on. So there would be two iterations going on simultaneously. Yeah, sure. I will share that in the mail that we will provide for the slides and the other resources. Yeah, so after that, moving on, as we have created our model and we have also saved our model in .h5 format. After that, here comes the thing which helps us to use our models in the microcontrollers. Excuse me. So we use the tf.lite. So tf.lite is provided by the TensorFlow library only, and we can use the tf-lite converter to convert our model into the microcontroller compatible format. So these are the basic commands which you can use to convert the like the model to the microcontroller one. And first, here we specify the converter optimizations. So I've used the default optimization only. So what this will do is this will optimize the size and the structure of your model according to the microcontroller. So suppose you have to use your model on a very low computation device. Okay, so like some old model of Arduino and so on. So for that you will have to use a better optimizer so that it can fit into the RAM and the memory. So after that, we save the .tf-lite model here. And as you can see, I've already run this, and you can see we have the sign model.tf-lite. And in the TensorFlow 2 version, there is also a thing called representative dataset, which is currently the best optimizer for the TF-lite. And what it does is it first creates a generator. So it is the same as the generators in Python and Python. So it will yield one value at a time and will provide values to our function, the represented data set. So this is a kind of optimizer and will help us improving the structure and the weights which we have stored in the microcontroller compatible format. So after that, as I told you, currently .tf-lite format is not supported in Arduino and ESP, right? So we have to convert that into the CC format, because we can only use the .c files or .ino files in Arduino and ESP. So for that, we can either use this method. So what this is doing is this is creating a C++ file using these commands. Like we are defined here, we have indef here, we have unsigned int here. So what we are doing is we are parsing the .tf-lite file and storing all those values which are there in the file in a C++ file. Okay, so in Linux there is a very simple command for that also. So here is a command xxt -i, and then we specify the model and the CC format. So this will automatically convert the .tf-lite file to the .cc file. Okay, so now with this we will get our sign model.h, as you can see here. So sign model.h will have our structure of the model, ML model, and the weights. Okay, so now we are ready to deploy our model on the microcontroller. But for that, first we install this library in our Arduino library. So in the Arduino IDE which we use on our PC for the compilation, which Aniket and Nirmal both use. So that uses some libraries, right? Like we have libraries in Python and C++, like NumPy, OpenCV, etc. So that also uses some libraries. And to use TinyML, we have to install this library. So what this is basically a wrapper class, so that it fixes the minor bugs and etc. comes during the compilation and like does all the nasty stuff for us. So we can use this to create our ML models, to deploy our ML models on the microcontrollers. So this is the code which we will use to deploy our model. So as you can see, I have included the sign model.h, and I've included the eloquent tinyml.h, which we installed using the git clone. So use to install eloquent tinyml, you just have to clone this repository and copy all the contents into the Arduino libraries folder. Okay, so after that, we are using the eloquent class to define our ML model, the class ML. So we have created the class ML, and we input our sign model, the one we created, into that ML model. Okay, so after that, this is just the Arduino, some basic Arduino commands like serial.begin, and then we define some inputs which we will give to our sign model. For example, uh, first we first we have here is a random input which we will create using a random function. So we will create a random input, and then we will get its actual sign value, because we have to do the comparison, right? So we will compute its actual sign value using the sign function, and then we will predict it using the ML also, and then we will print both the values. So now Aniket will show you this model in working on the ESP32. Aniket, you can share your screen and take over.
Yeah. So that was a cool thing Bhuvan shared. Now I'll share my screen. Bhuvan, you can stop your screen sharing. Yeah. As you can see, Bhuvan has already given me the code which I need to
One second,
run.
Aniket. You can also show them how to install that library
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
Arduino as
yeah.
well.
I am going over it. So for installing the Arduino, you just need to go to your documents. There you will see Arduino libraries. Here you just need to open your PowerShell and use that git clone command. Bhuvan has given you, and then you can just clone it. So I've already cloned it here. You can see. And what you need to do is copy that sign model.h file and go in this folder which has your Arduino code and paste it here. So then when you will open the Arduino ID again, you will see a sign model.h here. So you can see it here. And now what we need to do is again select ESP board port COM35. We need to upload it again, and I'll also open the serial monitor with along with it. Uh, so yeah.
Aniket, I think this is the other file. You have to run the other file now. This is the previous file. I sent
Oh,
one more file after this.
okay. So there was one change na here. ML, yeah. So okay, can you just give me the changes? I'll just type it here. Uh, one.
Um, one second.
Uh,
Or actually, I don't remember the exact changes. Maybe you can open that file only.
okay, okay. So
It was in the examples folder. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the library you clone,
sign
the
example.
git clone you the get you clone has already come with some examples, so you can open this sign example. Save changes, no. And you can see there is a little bit of change here. ML, you don't you need to write ML dot begin sign model, which we are not writing in that. So now you need to upload it. I'll compile it again. Meanwhile, you can just look at this screen sharing, and you can also give us the feedback after this. We have shared a feedback form with you guys. So uh, now it is compiling, and I guess it will take some time.
Till then, if you have any doubts, you can ask by unmuting or in the chat. Okay, I see one question in the chat. Yeah, ESP32 can handle computations of CNN and all, but to a limit. Like if you will, like I don't think anybody has tried GANs and all, but basic CNN models and other deep learning models are supported by ESP32. Maybe you can
So
try it with a GAN with yourself, but I'm highly skeptical
yeah,
if it will be able to support the GANs.
you can see it has uploaded, and now you can okay, I need to change the serial monitor value to the value there. Yeah, so now you can see predicted.
Yeah, so here you can see the one in the brackets is the, maybe Aniket, you can enlarge it a bit so that people are able to
This one,
see.
this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No, no
So
problem. Okay. So the one in the bracket is the input we are given, and this the first value, the 1.0, the 0.98, which you see is the actual sign value. And the on the right side you are seeing the one predicted by our model. So there are some discrepancies in the predictions, but overall it gives a decent result, as you saw by the in the collab, also in the like
you can
the
see.
loss which, yeah, the loss which dropped to such a low level over time in the epochs.
Yeah, so this is the demo for that. You can try it with your own. You just need a ESP, and then you can try ESP, or you can buy an Arduino. You can try several our hands-on examples we soon. Uh, now I'll stop this. Okay. Yes. So Bhuvan would conclude this ML part then.
Yeah, the model of ESP32. Aniket, we have a question. What is the model of the ESP32 which you have used?
We are using ESP32 Dev module. You can try. So this is basically depends on the hardware you buy, and therefore you can buy another hardware to use another. You can also try ESP8266, but ESP32 is the latest module we have. So I will recommend that. And if you wanna try, you can also try with Wi-Fi module on Arduino.